Hi, Fernando, Angela, Javier, Pilates Pal. How are you? Idio Pilates, Ido Pilates, not Idio. Ido. Hi. All right. So today. I've got two questions. Somebody asked a question about working with athletes, and there's also a question about the length. There she is. Okay, the length of the strap. Rebecca asked about the length of the strap and how it got that way and what it was and how it changed and who changed it and all that. So I'll talk about that as well. But first, let me say hi and good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever it is for you, wherever you are. So what we're going to do is talk about the working with athletes. And I've been the first workshop I ever taught on working with athletes and using the Pilates method was at a NATA, Athletic Trainers Conference in 1995. So I've been doing this for almost 30 years. It was in January of 95, I believe it was. I looked it up on my resume to see. So it's been a while. Hi, Monique. It's good to see you from Brazil. Oh, you're here. You're at Monique's. Oh, it's Flavio. Hi, Flavio. All right. So, working with athletes, what does that take? Well, one of the things that you have to understand is that you can use Pilates for everybody and anybody, right? And it doesn't really matter, but you can also specialize it and modify it, for the individual and their particular needs. Joe did that all the time. Perfect example is, some of the super advanced exercises. They're much more for the dancer and the acrobat and things like that. That's what they were for. That's how he put them together, and he used it for those people because he had quite a few of those people coming to him at his studio in New York, especially the dancers after the mid 30s to 40s. After Ted and Ruth St. Denis started to go to Joe, then all the other dancers did because they were the founders of modern dance in the U.S. pretty much. And, Martha Graham was one of their students and a lot of the other teachers. And so they all started to go to Joe. So that's one of the things that you do. So how do you work with athletes? Well, one of the things is that you need to understand the sport to a certain degree because every sport has different requirements and different imbalances, right? Because of how you play it, and it's repetitive. Any racket or a stick sport, right? It's all one-sided. Joe has a famous saying where he goes, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, I play both sides. I play both hands. So he's, so that he didn't have that problem. But almost everybody that plays with a stick or some sort of instrument in their hands is one-sided. If you look at baseball players, you have a left-handed hitter and you have a right-handed pitcher, right? So the one who throws the ball, he doesn't usually throw right and then throw left and throw, they have a glove for one hand, not for both, right? So that's part of it. And the same thing with batting. And most batters bat a certain, what's your habitual way, where do you have the most strength? Right-handed, you're going to bat, right-handed, but then there's left-handed batters as well. So you sort of need to understand. Going to the intermediate module, you're very happy. Good. Congratulations, Flavio. So one of the things that once you start to understand the sport better and the specific requirements of that sport, because, there's, we just went through the Olympics, right? And, Rebecca in France, that, you guys had the Olympics. And look at all the different things that they have to do. Somebody did the post where they showed Pilates exercises related to some of the movements that they did in sports. So that was a great post. I can't remember his name offhand, but it was a great way to show that relationship, because when you look at those movements that he showed related to Pilates, that's Joe's Pilates. That's contrology, Joe's contrology. That's not what you see on social media today, where people doing all this crazy stuff that has no relationship to function that I see. or reality in everyday life. Maybe, for some dance or, some acrobatics, there might be some of the things, but even that, they go way beyond that, right? Because they're going in weird positions and different things to do, I'm not sure what, besides just trying to get likes. But that's a whole nother, if you have questions about that, we can talk about that later. So when you're looking at athletes, what do you have to do? You once you figure out their sport, where's the work come from the most? Is it the upper powerhouse? Is it the lower powerhouse? Is it combinations? And again, what you're going to do for a gymnast compared to a football player, compared to a golfer or a tennis player is not going to be the same. So if you give everybody that's an athlete the same workout, it's not going to work as well. So you have to really understand those relationships as far as where the work comes from. And when you look at sports, when I was an athletic trainer, I did when I was in college, I did athletic training for 3 years. I had a scholarship for that. I took care of everybody did football, but then I also took care of the men's gymnastics because I wanted to work with dancers, and there was no dance medicine back then. So I had to go through sports, and the only sports that was closely related to dance was gymnastics. And one of the things that you realize in sports, how do you get the gold medal, right? How do you become the winner? And it's basically through contrology, being able to reproduce the same thing that's going to give you that goal of exercise or movement or whatever it is that you're doing in the sport, and repeat it and consistently with control. Well, Pilates is contrology, right? The study of control. So when you're looking at sports, that's one of the things that I saw that was really needed, was that repetition and that ability to have that control. And the sport doesn't always give it to you. And a lot of times the warm-ups and the training was part of it, but Pilates could give you that fine detail, that fine understanding in the body and the nervous system, how to use the powerhouses, the upper powerhouse and the lower powerhouse, right, to do what? To be able to allow you to have the control you need consistently over and over and over again. And the way that it does that is because if you use the upper powerhouse for like a stick sport, well, what is that motion that you're doing in a stick? That's rotation. All right, but rotation is the high level of motor control. And before you get to rotation, you need the side bending and you need deflection extension. So Pilates gives you the foundational support that they need, that a lot of times when they don't have control, it's not the rotation they don't have control of, it's the accessory or the other muscles that, because it's never one muscle, it's all the different muscles working together. And so it allows that flexion, extension, and side bending control underlying to give support for that rotation. And so when you look at that process, what do you need to do? So for somebody that has to swing a bat or swing a golf, right? One is high, one is low going up, high going down, right? So there's different sequences and different patterns of movement that you have to look at. And when we look at Joe's apparatus and exercises, we can see that we can see that he has the ability to train somebody in all of those different patterns, right? So if you have that ability, you can start to really understand what you have to do for that particular athlete. And besides they get off the machine and say, "Oh, I feel great." It's how does it improve their performance? And in performance, that's it's key. It's that contrology that you're teaching them to control, right? The ability to control all the different muscles and all the different, what I call it dynatonics, right? Because in traditional muscle biomechanics and ergonomics and understanding of how to work with muscles physiology, it's eccentric, concentric, isometric, right? So you have these three things, and they break it down and they talk about how to do that and how to do this, and this movement you're doing this movement you're doing that. But in reality, every movement we do, all the muscles are working in some fashion pretty much, right? There's very little total plasticity that happens in real function. So when that's the case, and especially in sports, right, what part is being stable, right? What part is transitioning, and what part is doing the main force and the main activity. So when we look at sports that way, that's what we have to do. We have to look at that process and use what we've been taught with the exercises and with the different ways of looking at it. So you can do what that post was, where you look at the what they have to do in the sport, and then you look at what you can do in Pilates, and that's one way to start to progress them. But it's the underlying foundation that's also very important. Okay? So I'm going to, this is not a workshop, right? There's much more to it than that. But that's the basic understanding. So if you want to work with athletes, that's my suggestion, is that really whatever your training is, look at your manuals, look at your how you've been taught your exercises, and see if they match what you do in what you see in the sports. When you look at classical, it's very much based on the foundational movements of how we learned how to move, because that's what Joe did, right? So he wanted to do that, all right, and that's how he progressed his system. And it wasn't about a muscle or a muscle group. It was about working everything together all the time. And when you look at pictures of Joe, you never see this flaccid little extremity anywhere. It's always working. So that's it for athletes. If you have a question, you can think about it. I'll answer them at the end. The second question I got was, how did the straps on the Reformer change? They are longer than Joe's original, because I have Joe's original clawfoot Reformer, and I have his original straps that were on it, and they are shorter than what you get on Gratz today. And when it comes to contemporary, I really have no idea, because I don't work out on contemporary apparatus. It's just not. I'm not interested, because I work on Gratz and Joe's, and it does what it says. When he says this is what it does, when I do it, that's what it does. So I don't need to go do all those other things. That's why people say Joe would have changed things, but he didn't change things. Over 40 years, he changed a few things, but the majority, I'd say 90 to 95%, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever. He didn't change over the decades. So at least in his photo shoots, and if you're going to be able to do a photo shoot, what does that say? It's clear in the historical record that he didn't really change things. Let's put it there, okay? So but what happened is that the strap length has changed, but also the Reformer length has changed, okay? Because there are Reformers now that are 89 inch. There might be, at least in classical, right? There's 80, 86, and 89. Well, 89 is really designed for what? 89 is designed for doing what? Doing jumping on the jump board, right? And that was not Joe, that we know for sure. There's no evidence of him ever using a jump board in teaching exercises. There is one picture of the apparatus, and it looks like there's a board that was maybe put at the bottom. So he may have had that, but did he use it as a jump board or just a board to push back and forth with, to imitate the floor? I don't, it's not really clear, okay? But the jumping board came in the 90s, okay? And Romana liked it, so she said, okay, let's put him on. So, because as the dance teacher she was, and the dance background, she liked it because she had a lot of dancers that would come to her, right? So when they came, what did she want to do? She wanted to help them get back into their dancing. So with Pilates, she would do all the Pilates work, and then she would put the jump board on, and you could do a little bit of the jumping that dancers do. Not a lot, but a little bit. I mean, again, what's happened today is people have taken it and made it its own workout and its own aerobic thing and this and that, which is different than what Romana wanted to do. Okay, so again, they're taking it outside of the understanding and the basic foundation of the way you work in Pilates with that apparatus. But it is what it is. So that's how, but now you have a 96-inch reformer. Well, the strap's got to be longer. The 86 has got to be longer. And that's one possibility, that when they were changing straps and things, people, didn't do different things. Now it's supposed to be 2 or 3 fingers past the shoulder block where the end of the loop is. Again, and that's even changed over time. So it's going to vary as far as where that comes from. And again, the question was, one of the questions he asked, was it just because they got stretched over time? Well, the straps do stretch, right? They are leather. And depending on the environment that you're in, but when did and why did the strap change on the 80-inch? Well, again, that's a good question. There is no answer to that I have. There is no written record. There's no documentation that says, well, we're going to take it from here and now we're going to add it to here. I know that when Steve was making apparatus, that's what the question was asked, how long is the strap? And she said, here's your fingers. And that was 80-inch. So whether or not that changed for the 89 or the 86, but it became the standard for all the different apparatus, that you had 2 or 3 fingers past the shoulder block. Now, it could also be that Joe's shoulder block was different than Gratz's now, right? The first one, the 80-inch, the clawfoot, it's a quarter moon, right? So that may have been part of it as well. It's not really clear. And, Joe had many, I wouldn't say, 50 or 30, but he had a number of different straps and different lengths and different springs and different things. And he obviously, he experimented to a certain degree, we know, with the reformer springs as well. So he may have also experimented with the straps. So, and again, he came up with a standard and that became the standard. Now, was that the standard in the studio when Romano took over and started working? Was that how Joe had it, right after he passed? Was that the consistent? And we don't even know. Maybe in Joe's studio he had long straps and short straps. It's not really clear. There's no evidence of that. And maybe if he had a long strap and a short strap, the long one was the one that got reproduced by Gratz. So again, it could have been that they were old, because we know that Joe changed from the wood apparatus to the metal sometime between, I think, 1959 and 1960 or 61. So a very short period of time. So let's say it was 60 or 61. So Joe still had metal reformers with his straps for 6 or 7 years. And they could have very well stretched out over time an inch or two. I mean, that's possible. I've seen them do that. As they get old and they get used a lot, that's what will happen. So maybe by the time that Romano took over in 1970, they'd even stretched a little bit more. And so when, Gratz was making them, that's the difference, that they started to make a change because they based it on the apparatus that they came and measured at that time. Okay? So that may be the way that process happened. It's not really clear, Rebecca, as far as where that comes from. I don't think that there's any place that I have seen. I don't think I know that there's no place that I've seen where that's documented and talked about as far as how that, why is the strap length, what is the specific strap length from Joe. Or even, the only thing I have is Romano saying 2 to 3 fingers past the shoulder block on the Gratz reformer is where the loop should end, right before that's the loop of the strap that the D ring or the circle ring, comes in where you attach the clip for the handle. So that's pretty much where it is. And, now Gratz makes it so you can adjust the strap so you can make, it comes in a certain position And if you use it enough and it stretches out, you can tighten it up a little bit. And it's only an inch or two, but your strap, look, if your straps stretch more than 2 inches past what it was when you first got it, it's probably time for a new strap, or getting close to it, because it's getting overworked. And I have seen a strap or two break that have been, too old, too long. And that's how you learn to not do that, right? If you have a strap that breaks because it was old, it's dangerous. So now, usually after they stretch a certain, more than 2 inches from the beginning, then I started to replace mine, all of the ones that I used. Okay. All right. So, are there any questions as well? I mean, I know, Rebecca, you had one. If you have any more, as far as that goes, again, there's documentation wise, there's very little that tells us about the straps and the length and even the width or anything like that. So it's not really clear. All right. So, and I do know that Romana had a standard and that she said it was that length, but where she got that standard from, I don't know for sure. These kind of questions I didn't ask back then, because it wasn't a question you asked. She said, this is how you do it, and you followed what she did because she was the expert. And, today, between, really looking at all the archives and looking at all the research that's happened over the especially the last couple of years with Elaine Ewing, really finding so many different things and being able to get other apparatus at the same, that old apparatus. We've been able to discover so many little details that weren't always clear before, but now they are much clearer. So again, over time, as the interest continues, we'll hopefully find more and more information and more apparatus, old apparatus, original apparatus, that will give us a better insight. But before that happens, or until that happens, we have to just go by what's been available. And what's been available is that there is nothing documentation-wise as far as the strap goes. And I can tell you firsthand what Romana told me and what she did and how she did it. And again, I don't know if that's what they still teach at Romana's Pilates or not. I haven't, it's been a couple decades since I've dealt with them, so I don't know if they've changed anything. I pretty much, I try to stay pretty close to the source. So, I have the classical training. I do the training that Romana and I started back in the 1990, and we continue to teach that, and that's what we teach. That's classical. When we look, if we're going to do archival, and I do an exercise on Joe's claw foot reformer, well, guess what? I have the shorter strap because I have the original and I made a copy, for that reformer, and that fits that reformer. Because remember, it's not just the length of the strap. Where does the strap attach? How does it go through the pulley? What's those types of things. There's a lot of little things. And does it really matter? We don't know for sure 100% if it's, if it's a half an inch or an inch off. Is that going to make a huge difference in the workout? It's going to, look, when you change the apparatus in any way, shape, or form, it changes the exercise for sure. But the farther you get away from the original, the more likely it's going to change farther away from what Joe claimed that it would do for you. Okay, so that's part of that as well. So I tend to say that a lot. It's, you change the equipment, you change the apparatus, because once you get on that apparatus, it becomes a closed system, right? Your body with the apparatus, is closed. And so when you do that, it affects your body a certain way. And the way Joe set it up it's for the average, right? Joe set it up for the average, meaning that for most people who walk through the door, it gives you what he says it's going to do. And I always teach there's a bell curve, and either end, there's extremes, and that's where you modify, for sure. You have to modify. All right, seems we should examine all the photos towards the end of Joe's life. The straps look short on all the photos I've seen. They look a lot shorter to me. Well, again, they are shorter, for sure. They are definitely shorter. They don't go to two or three fingers past the shoulder block. Now, the straps that I had were very old, so they may have even been stretched. So again, but we do know that, there's 4 reformers that I know of, like the studio reformer. There's the one that he had in Germany that had 7 springs, right? And that didn't have pulleys, didn't have straps. So that really doesn't matter so much. He didn't get the straps until he came here. And then when he came here, there's the 101 poster, right? That's the poster of his original reformer poster. If anybody's interested, I have it on the Pilates Posters Etsy store. You can purchase it there. But it didn't have claw feet. Okay, so there's that reformer. Then there's the claw foot reformer. And then there's the metal reformer. I guess there was also the reformer. There's pictures of them doing a workout up on the rooftop. And there was a reformer that didn't have any legs. So it was kind of sort of like the junior reformer, or the other version that he came up with later on. So there's really 4 that I know of with straps. So that looking at that, we'd have to see. Okay, and as far as what to do with it, I mean, there are some things that may be a possibility. One of the things that we're doing at Pilates at the Pillow this fall in September, the end of September, is archival, and we have a number of different reformers that we're going to be using in the workshops that we're teaching at the Pilates at the Pillow. It's all about reformer and Joe's breathing. And so we have the clawfoot, we have original grots from the 80s, we have them from the 90s, we have them from the 2000s. We have the junior reformers. There's 2 of them. One that's foldable, one that's not. There's different springs. There's also the performer, the Pilates performer that I worked with, Stamina, back in the 90s, which was foldable and was based on Joe's junior reformer, that we're going to be using as well. So we're going to be able to sort of assess everything and, work it out and talk about that. So that's some of the things that we'll be talking about. And we're still working on those workshops and digging deep and trying to figure things out. And, the straps is one of those issues, but that's something that we're saving for the workshop at the Pillow. And then we may do that again later on, but that's the work we're doing for the Pillow at the moment with the reformer. So, okay. So that's pretty much, I think, a good little dialogue for today. So if you have any questions right now, write them up and let me see. If not, if you have any questions about any exercise or anything, DM me and I will do my best to give you the basic foundation. Again, this is just, a free talk, and if I'm doing research and digging deep and doing a lot of work, then that becomes either a webinar and or a workshop. But for this, I'll do my best to answer the basic questions and the basic understanding. I think I did that for the straps, as far as how and why, as far as I know. And maybe somebody else out there has other evidence and a better understanding. And if they do, great. Let's see it. Let's find out about it. Let's add to the foundation of the history, so that we have a better understanding of what really Joe wanted and how he wanted it, because it really is about maintaining the quality and integrity of the work for generations to come. That's what that's what it's really about, because what's going on today in social media, I think, is a fad, and that won't last. But if, the problem is if it becomes a fad and you don't have a foundation, then it disappears. We're trying to make sure that doesn't happen with the Pilates Source. So if you have any questions, DM me and I'm happy to answer them. And again, it can be anatomy, it can be ergonomics, it can be biomechanics, exercises, business. I've done a lot of different things. If it's something you're interested in and you're having a question about and I can answer it, send it to me and I'll do my best to try to give you what I know from my over 35 years over that. So let me know. Okay. So thanks for joining me. Couple things. Sunday, if anybody's in the Berkshires, which is in 2 days, right? It's our volunteer day. We have 3 during the summer, the end of every month, the last Sunday. So this is the last one for this year. Volunteering to come and take care of and the conservation and restoration and things like that at Joe's compound in the Berkshires with the museum. So if it's something you're interested in, please DM me and let me know, because I provide lunch. There's drinks. It's water only. I don't do alcohol, or sodas, but there's drinks that way, and a lot of good talks and camaraderie and things like that if you're interested and history. So you'll be able to get a lot of history if you haven't been to the museum yet and you're interested and you'd like to volunteer a little bit and give back to the community that way. Let me know. DM me. So that's Sunday. I have, every Tuesday I teach 2 classes. One's Pilates, one's not. The non-Pilates is my Balanceology, and that is at 12:30 every Tuesday. And if you're having want to balance issues or you want to work on your balance, it's a great class to take. And then after that, I have the resistor posters, exercises. But Joe had other exercises that they were based on. They're derivatives of Joe's exercises. So I'm teaching that from 12:30 to 1 every Tuesday. So if it's something you're interested in, you can sign up. You go to my link tree at /Sean_Gallagher, and you can sign up there. And then on Mondays, we have our Return to Life mat. Elaine and I do that. And then we're also doing, on Mondays, that's at 5 o'clock. And then at 5:30, we're doing the 2x4 right now. So one of us teaches the mat, the other teaches 2x4. The next week, we switch teaching the classes. So if you'd like to join in that, let us, just, again, go to the link tree, and you'll be able to get it there. Okay, or DM me, and I can send you the information. All right, I think that's all that's coming up anytime soon, besides the pillow at the end of September. Okay, thanks all. I'll see you next week. Send me your questions if you have them. Thanks for joining.